Listeners and readers, welcome back to the podcast today. I'm delighted to have Derek Hughes along. I sort of I've sort of known Derek for a little while now through Medium and Substack and different platforms, things like that. So it's great to finally get a chance to chat to you one on one, face to face. Derek, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well. It's good to see you in the flesh, as it were.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely is. It's always cool when I get to meet the likes of yourself in these calls. It's always really really cool. But yeah, Derek, just as we start off, because I know you a little bit, but want to get to know you more. I want our listeners and our readers to get to know you more as well. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, where you're from, what you do for a living, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, cool, everyone. I'm living in Manchester at the moment. I've lived in different parts of the UK, and for the last few decades in my work, I've tended to be involved with kind of leadership stuff in the public sector, in the charity sector, in the church world. So I work 4 days a week at the moment. In my main job, which is around leadership in a church, running like community stuff and projects and that sort of stuff. I used to be 5 days a week, but writing has kind of exploded a bit, so I've gone down to 4 days a week. Got two grown-up kids, which poses various challenges. Hopefully, they won't watch this and hear me say that. And yeah, and recently got married a few years ago, and yeah, so all's good.
Brilliant, brilliant. And yeah, no, you're right, it really has exploded over the last sort of couple of years in particular, and it's been really cool watching that happen on Medium and now on Substack as well.
Yeah.
I just want to pick out a little quote, Derek, from I think it's from your bio on Substack, I found it, but you said, I'm an old bloke with no writing experience, but decided to give this online thing a go, age 51. In 18 months, I built a 30K writing business. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's funny because I've updated my profile there not so long ago, and I guess this is like one of the lessons really. I think at one point I was writing and I threw into it that I was 51 and didn't really have much experience. I think it was in a Medium article, and I could see a lot of people picked up on that idea. And because sometimes, like, you get people in their 20s who've got like 24 hours a day free, and they're just hammering it on comments and twittering and posting and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I'd just be more real and say I'm not a guru. I'm just like an old bloke who's trying to work out what's going on. And so yeah, I mean, probably yeah, just under 2 years ago, January 2023, I started on Medium, and I just moved into a new job which wasn't as challenging as my previous one, and I found I had a bit of headspace free, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I did a lot of reading and a lot of thinking, and I was maybe I could just like put those thoughts online and write, and so I kind of started to do that, and then I read Nicholas Cole's book. And he mentioned Medium, which I'd never heard of really. All I knew was blogs, really. So that's what I was planning to do.
Mm.
And I heard about this thing called Medium, and I heard about his story, and I was like, that's a bit nuts. Is this stuff really real? So I thought, well, if I'm going to write anyway, I might as well try on Medium. So I just started writing on Medium, and yeah, and thought I'll just see what happened, and just went on like a roller coaster ride really for 6 months.
Mm.
It was like not very good at all. You know, the first couple of months is like the thrill of like, wow, you've typed something and it's now on the internet on this site with a million readers and anything could happen, and then you realize actually nothing happens. And then I just like I'm quite competitive. I like to kind of do well. So then I just started like reading what other people were saying and trying to work out like what is going on. And you had people saying they'd grown and they'd done this, that, and the other. So I just started like reading what other people were saying and started learning and experimenting with stuff really.
Mm.
And at the time, I was just like writing about anything and everything that interested me. I was just writing about because I had so many interests and stuff. And then I knew nothing really about writing.
Mm.
I've done like universities, so I've done essays and that sort of stuff, and I'd written emails in a work context, but I'd never done writing at all. And then I realized I was like really bad at it. And so I was like, right, I need to like learn how this like digital writing thing works and start picking up some tips. And then I just started applying those to my writing.
Mm.
And um, and then I found really that the out of all the things I was writing about, when I shared any of my writing tips, that like did much better than everything else.
Mm.
Even though I knew the least about writing, you know, I do property, finance, I've done leadership, public speaking. There's loads of stuff. I've got like decades of experience, But when I was writing about something that I just learned that week and I was trying it out, that did a bit better.
Mm.
And I'd heard about this idea that you should focus, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just like focus on share about that. So after about 6 months, I just decided to, in quotes, niche down onto writing
Mm.
and just focus on that really, where I was just really all I was doing is like sharing what I'd learned and what I was putting into practice.
Mm.
And that like just yeah, after about 7, 8 months, I think on Medium, it just like skyrocketed, and I've got like whatever thousands of followers over a few months, and then I was like, what is going on here, you know? And I was like, all right, maybe this like could, I don't know, maybe something could happen,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. So that was like the early days, really.
Mm. Yeah, it's been amazing to watch your journey on Medium because I've probably been on a similar length of time to you, but you've kind of really just taken the bull by the horns and really gone for it. And you've become a top writer there now. You're well known on the platform. You're obviously doing really well in a financial sense through Medium too. So Derek, what does your process look like? So kind of skipping ahead on a question here that we'd sort of given you in advance, but in terms of when you're going to write an article, so how do you go about preparing it? How do you go about picking an idea and then translating the idea onto the computer screen? What's your process?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite different. I mean, I've written like 400 plus articles on
Mm.
Medium now. So like if I am, so there's two types of articles I write. One is a new article where I've just learned something new, or there's some kind of fresh ideas and I'm going to turn it into an article. And then there's the other times where I know what works on Medium. I know my stuff, so I keep like recycling ideas because like you've learned what's work. And just because people read it like 6 months ago, there's loads of people reading today who haven't seen my previous stuff.
Mm.
So I have like two types of articles, and probably the approaches are slightly different in that sense. If I'm writing about something I've done before, I look at my old stuff and repurpose it maybe and just have a look and work it out. But if I was writing like a new one, say I've got a new idea on productivity or writing, and I was like just being, because I'm always learning and thinking, so there's always like fresh stuff.
Mm.
Um, then I'd start with maybe like the core idea that I'd learned that I wanted to kind of share about. And then I would just start to, sometimes I'll get a headline quite early on, and then I'll always go to an outline. So I'll start to kind of jot out like the outline and what shape it might take.
Hmm.
And then stick a trendy introduction on the front, and then maybe come back to it another day, and then I'll like edit it and tidy it up, run through my
Mm.
checklist. And but I would probably spend most time on the introduction these days,
Okay.
uh, particularly on Medium, where you get to see like the read rate, and you can, so for those people who know, it'll tell you who's after 30 seconds who's still reading. So I
Mm.
mean, you get that on YouTube as well, but you don't always get that on every site. And that's a bit discouraging for you, really, to know that like after 30 seconds, a third of your audience is gone or something. But meant I've been able to test what types of introductions hold on to readers and stuff, and it's like actually, if you lose a third in that first paragraph, then in a sense, that's the most important paragraph to write.
Mm.
I mean, your last paragraph, actually, you've probably only got 20% of your readers there by then.
Mm.
So I try and like, I mean, I've got that idea from Ali Abdul and his like YouTube training. He would say to people, front load the beginning because that's where you lose people. So try and, so yeah. So once I've got it all down, I'd maybe go to the introduction and try and tighten that up and just think about that linking to my headline, that keeping attention, and
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. How important, I mean, you're so right that that start part of any piece of content, whether it's a video or an article, whatever, is the real key point that is going to hit people in or lose them very quickly. Uh, what what does how does the headline figure and all that then? So obviously you get people to click into the article and that's the real key thing. But if they don't read the headline and they're not grabbed by that, they're never going to read your actual content. So what would you say is the way to structure a headline that's going to bring people into the actual body of your work?
Yeah, I mean, headlines are like just so important, and I think that it took me a while really to grasp this, that I would do the headline last. I would do the headline when I had no energy left, and
Mm.
I would just fire something up, and I'd look at it and think, oh, that sounds good, and I'd post it out, and then after a while of like getting nobody clicking on it or very few click on it, and you're thinking, I've spent hours on this article and I spent 5 minutes on the headline and nobody's read it.
Hmm.
And so then I would be like, actually, I just need to give more attention to the headline. And I'd almost have to tell myself, remember, Derek, that when this goes out, nobody's going to read it if you rush that headline.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is like just give more time and attention to your headline, thinking about it, working out what would get attention. And the
Hmm.
challenge for writers is you've been in your article for 2 hours or for 3 days or whatever it might be, and you come up with a very okay title, but because you're so committed to your thing, it's quite hard to see the headline fresh, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
you just see and you think, oh yeah, that would draw me in. But like people are going to see that when they're standing at the bus stop, they're scrolling their phone, and there's three other articles saying that these are the best 7 tips ever. And people have got like 0.5 of a second to see it, you know, and you've got to like write it in that sense, you know.
Hmm.
But you want to get the right readers to click, you know, so you just don't want any readers, because then your read rate disappears because they click on your paragraph and they see what it's about and then they're like, this is not for me, and they click off, you know. So,
Hmm.
you know, I have made mistakes in the past where you've made it really mysterious headline and you hook them in, and then when people, oh right, that's what it's about, and they don't want to be on. And so for Medium and for any platform really, you know, if you get people to click on but they don't read it, then actually you're worse off than if they clicked on the first place, you know. So like, yeah, having that kind of
Hmm.
laser focus of who it's for, and it's got to be like joined up to your introduction so you don't lose anyone, and your intro needs to be joined up to your first few points. So having that seamless
Hmm.
connection in. But like headlines are always changing, you know, because what happens is people work out a type of phrase or something that works. You know, if you get like a good article that goes viral and people see what you did in the title and then everyone repeats it. And so therefore that doesn't work anymore.
Hmm.
And so there's some standard things about headlines that always work, but actually the nuances of it are always changing because everyone just steals anything that works well, and then there's like 1,000 of those types of articles, you know. So I'm very much into, like, every month I analyze my stuff from the month, and I'll analyze what's worked and what didn't work, and from that I'll get like theories that I want to reuse in the future, you know. So I'll be like, right, this type of headline works, I want to use this phrase, it works, or whatever, and then I'll reuse that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, particularly now my writing's getting popular, everyone else is doing the same to my stuff, you know. So the next month there'll be like a whole flurry of that. So I'll tend to hit a good idea or a good technique, and that might work for a couple of months, and I'll recycle that, reuse a bit. But then, because everyone else's is, again, eventually it like runs out of steam. So you've
Hmm.
always got to be like trying out new things and new theories and new ways of writing and hooking attention.
Yeah.
And so I tend to have bangers, things that I know work, that I'm trying to milk for all they're worth. And I've always got a few new experiments and new ways of writing and something, and thinking, right, I'll try this, I'll try that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and I think it's something that a lot of writers don't really focus on enough. We kind of take it for granted, as you say, create the actual content and then just stick on any headline and hope that it's going to work. But really, the headline's almost the more important part of the overall piece and the introduction as well. And I know you've got training about this as well, Derek. You've created courses about this kind of stuff, which is great. So I'll link all those in the show notes below after this conversation, so people can check those out too.
yeah.
I also wanted to just go back to something you said there real quick because you mentioned about the right readers for your posts. So how do you determine, first of all, who the right reader is, and then how do you write for that person? How do you translate what you're writing and aim it at the right kind of reader who's going to stick around and actually read the full piece you've written?
Yeah, so I mean, you've got the kind of right reader for the particular thing you're writing, but then also you've got like, if you want to get followers and subscribers, then it's the right audience for like most of your stuff or all your stuff, you know. So people always try and shoot me for this, but you know, you need a focus, and you can't just write about everything you're in. Well, you can write about everything you're interested in, but not if you want to grow an audience, you know.
Mm,
And it's kind of fine, you know, all the big guys can do that because once they're so big, they can write anything and we would read it, you know. But like while you're small, you need to at some point focus, and that focus then is like having that focus is for somebody,
mm,
you know. So I mean, essentially what happened for me was I was just sharing what I was learning as I went along, and it was very fresh. because like I didn't know anything about writing or anything like that. And so essentially I was just helping people who were 2 months earlier than me,
Mm.
in the early days. So it was really for anyone who was quite new for writing, didn't have a clue what they were doing, but thought this sounds like a good idea. I'll see what happens. And I was kind of aiming at those people. As I've grown, then that's kind of widened a little bit, you know what I mean? And but I think for a lot of people, your best audience is those who are just slightly a couple of steps behind you. You know, if you're growing and if you're learning stuff,
Mm.
um, unless you've got a particular professional expertise. So sometimes I get people to me who may be a professional psychologist or the some like professional business they've done face to face, and then they want to translate it to writing. So it's not so much their experience of dealing with their problem; it's their experience of helping people with a problem. Yeah. And in that case, those people tend to be much clearer who their audience is, because their audience online is their audience kind of face to face, as it were. But if you're not sure, then you kind of look in the comments and look at your responses and see what like people are saying, what they liked, what they commented. I mean, on Medium is great because people highlight stuff, so you know exactly which bits they liked. But
Yeah.
on any platform, if people are commenting, I mean, you get all the great tips, thank you for this, which is nice, but didn't tell you anything. But when people start asking questions on the name and stuff that was useful, then that starts to like
Mm.
tell you what resonates particularly, you know. So like for me, when I started saying, you know, I'm an old bloke, I'm 51, no experience, and this is what happened to me, and that resonated with people, then it was like, actually, it's people who don't think they've got what it takes.
Okay.
It's people who think the whole thing's a scam and that like gurus are untouchable, but actually they're thinking, right, so this like bloke, and I've seen his early stuff, it was really terrible. You know, if he can progress, if he can progress, then maybe I can. So then you realize you're speaking to people who don't believe they can do it,
Hmm.
you know, and so then you get an insight into the audience, and so then you can start to tailor your stuff,
Mm.
around that. So I think that you're always looking for clues. So like in my newsletter, when people sign up for my newsletter, the first thing they get is always, send me a writing challenge and I'll give you a piece of advice.
Mm.
And first thing I say, and then that is just all the time people telling me stuff that they're struggling with. So I'll send them a quick reply, but it's also good for me to know, all right, this is where people are at. This is the stuff that they're struggling with. This is like what's going on for them. So I
Yeah.
think as a writer, always want to be listening to comments, even listening to what works, what gets lots of attention and what doesn't. That tells you about
Yeah.
where people are coming from, and then having that in mind when you write,
Yeah.
or even that shaping what you write about.
Yeah.
I think is really really important.
Mm. Yeah, no, just on that as well. Like I was talking to somebody just before this, one of my paid subscribers, and she's so kind, and she said at the end of the call, she's like, what can I do for you? Like, how can I support you and stuff because of what you told me today and stuff. And I just said, what, just having this conversation with you is so important for me because it helps me understand what you're going through, what you're struggling with, how I can help you. And then,
Yeah,
as you say, that shapes the kind of content that I'm going to create in future to help other writers as well who are going through the same things that she's struggling with.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
so those conversations in the comments or in private via email or
yeah.
wherever are just so important, aren't they?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just all the time, always having your antennae out for picking up bits and pieces and what people are saying, what's working, and even trying to initiate those conversations, and
Mm.
ask questions and respond and say, "Oh, thank you." So sometimes the people will say, "Oh, this was really helpful," and I mean, I get criticized a little bit now on Medium because I actually can't reply to all my comments. You know what I mean? Because like I need to sleep sometimes, um, but I do try. If someone said, "Oh, this is really helpful," you can think, "Oh, that's so glad to hear that. Which bit was most helpful, or what was particularly helpful?"
Mm.
And then sometimes they don't mean it; they're just saying it. But sometimes they might say, "Actually, it was this bit that really helped,"
Mm.
and you're like, "All right, that's really good for me to know."
Yeah.
And then it's just like an ongoing process, don't it? Every bit of information you add into your writing, and then you think, right, I'll create some content particularly to help with that issue, and it's just like something
Ongoing
that's like just
process. Yeah.
ongoing process that you just feed in.
Yeah. How long does it take you, Derek, to write an article for Medium? So do you do it every single day or do you do like on a weekly basis or what does it work?
Yeah, I write every morning, first
Mm.
thing, pretty much when I get up,
Mm.
and it varies a lot. If I'm starting from scratch and it's something that needs a lot of Thinking, it could probably take a couple of hours.
Mm.
If it's something I'm kind of repurposing, I've talked about quite a few times, and then that could probably take me 45 minutes maybe.
Okay.
So it kind of varies a lot depending on how much headspace I'm thinking I wanna do on it.
Perfect. Perfect. No, I'd be the same. I write in the mornings as well, and it does generally take me that same sort of length of time to put something together. And that's the beauty of online writing, isn't it? Because you can just have the idea, write it, get it on the internet, and then get like instant feedback on it and understand what your audience resonate with as
Yeah, yeah,
well. It's the beauty of
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I nearly always don't write and publish the same day.
mm,
I always tend to write and then edit, tidy it up the next day, just check. I'll come back to the intro and I'll just be like, that makes no sense. You know what I mean? Or that's not as clear as you thought it was yesterday. The writing and the kind of evaluating are like different headspaces for me.
mm,
So I if I'm doing well in my rhythm, tomorrow I will just review the thing I'd read yesterday, then it'll get published, then I'll write the next thing for tomorrow, and then tomorrow I'll come back and just check it, then publish. But then the second half of my writing, um, create the next thing, and then every now and again I'll maybe get like plan 4 or 5 articles that are kind of coming up. Sometimes I'll just have
mm.
a think and a review, but
Brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of similar with fiction. Whenever I'm writing books, there comes a point where you finish the book, the first draft, and then you just like lock it away for a month or a
yeah,
month and a half, and you don't look at it again, and you come back, and sometimes you read it and you think, this is amazing. Did I write this? This is so good. And other
yeah,
times you're like, this is terrible. This makes no sense, and I can see straight away this is going to be a major problem for like later on in the plot and that sort of
yeah.
thing. And like I'm in the process of reading through a first draft now of my next book, so. It's a really interesting process and I really enjoy it, but it's also kind of painful sometimes because you have to cut things out as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'm sure. I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Um, but I think probably my emphasis would be on publishing and always has been. So it's like, actually, I've got to publish. I've got to
yeah,
get it out. So, which is slightly different from kind of book writing, but just that kind of the volume is the key. You just got to get volume out. I
yeah,
think in the early days, I would have been like, right, this one is going to be perfect. You know what I mean? I've written down all Tim Deming, Nicholas Cole, Alex Mavis, whoever. I've written down all their top tips, and they're all going into this article, and it's just going to be amazing. And I would do that and spend like loads of time, and it just wouldn't do very well at all.
yeah,
And sometimes I'd whack something out, and then it would like fly off. So then I was just like, actually, you just never know what's going to do well. So for now, it's just like, actually, I've just got to keep publishing.
yeah.
Even if it's not quite right, not quite the best, just send it out. And so
Mm,
that's probably my big
yeah.
commitment, to just keep sending it out, really.
I think it's kind of similar with like notes on Substack because sometimes you'll spend quite a while putting together a really, really good note and then it doesn't really do an awful lot. And then
Yeah,
sometimes you just have like a quick line you think of on the spur of the moment and it blows up and you can't
yeah,
really understand why sometimes, but that's just
yeah,
the way it goes.
yeah, yeah.
I wanted to ask as well, but Derek, just about the rest of your like writing ecosystem. So what is that composed of beyond Medium and maybe Substack? What else is involved?
Yeah, so I have Medium, Substack, and I have a ConvertKit newsletter.
Mm,
That's my regular stuff that goes out. And there's various these days the systems where I'm kind of repurposing stuff across those 3 items.
mm,
And then from that, then I'm thinking about digital products and live workshops, or in live workshops once a month. I'm always creating different products, and usually, so for me, mediums at the bot is the starting point. I write 1,000 words every day article. From that, Substack and ConvertKit would be kind of repurposed versions of some of that. Not the stuff from this week, but maybe from 3 months ago. I'll look at
mm,
some stuff. Uh, and then my product, so I deliver a writer's workshop once a month, and I'm creating products, and that tends to come from all that content below that's
mm,
been tested. So I'll see on Substack or Medium what's worked really well, what are people most interested in that I've written, and then almost the best of the best will then be tidied up and then become some of my products. So you talked about my headline course, which was some stuff I tested on Medium in the early days, and then that become a course.
mm,
I've got like a resource bank, which is lots of templates and outlines, and a lot of that stuff had come because whenever I give away outlines or headlines, that was like the people were just championing for, you know. And when I'm doing my workshop once a month, then I'm looking at really good content that's really got lots of comments, and then I take that and shape it, etc. So I tend to almost like the medium, and the other stuff is like the tester, just get it out, test, and then from that I use some of that in newsletters, and then for my products and services, either courses or workshops or whatever, that's been like road tested, and it usually gets refined and perfected a little bit in that sense. So
Brilliant.
yeah, when you get going, it starts to get a little bit complicated, you know, and you've got to kind of get systems for it to kind of work neatly together. But yeah, that's kind of what mine looks like, you know, and I'm thinking of new courses in the future. And again, that will be done by like reflecting at all the other content I've been creating and what connects with people the most and how I could help them even more, really.
Brilliant. What's been the biggest driver of email subscribers for you? Even like before you joined Substack necessarily, where are you seeing your audience grow from the most?
Yeah, so ConvertKit, I've got about 5,000
Right.
subscribers, something like that, and started that about 12 months ago. And Medium is my big driver. I have a free course
Mm,
that I give away at the bottom of all my Medium articles. And I mean, I just did that accidentally, really. It wasn't very strategic, but quite early on, I realized that if you just give away an ebook, in hindsight, I've realized an ebook and a PDF, they're just 10 a penny, and people download them and never read them.
mm,
And but I'd accidentally created an email course, which meant that people were reading my emails. They'd read 5 emails as the lead magnet, so then they were already into the habit of reading emails, you know,
mm,
and they'd already learned a lot about me. And so that's what like kept my retention like
yeah.
really high, I think. And so that's probably that's the big one.
Mm,
Um, and
brilliant.
then on ConvertKit, I have like Creator Network, you know, so there's a few big creators who we swap subscribers. You know, once I had like this big flow coming in from Medium, then I went to some of the bigger guys than me and said, listen, I've got this number of subs coming through. Do you want to swap recommendations? You know, and so that has helped a little bit as well. But it's still Medium
Brilliant.
and my free email course
Brilliant. How often do you email out your list on the ConvertKit one?
once a week.
Once a week. Okay, cool.
Unless I'm trying to sell something. But once every Wednesday, they'll get some free helpful content
Good.
every week, and
Yeah.
then there might be other bits of emails, but that's more about promoting a product or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Brilliant.
yeah,
And let's talk about Substack then. Like, what brought you to the platform? When did you decide it was time to sort of step into that then as well?
yes, I'm a big believer in one platform. You know,
Mm,
master one platform. And too many writers jump to too many platforms because everyone says go over there, or they just say you can just copy and paste and like you'll grow on 2 platforms, and like that just doesn't work because each platform is quite nuanced.
mm,
And so I resisted it quite a long time, but basically, like it felt like everyone except me was on Substack. You know, a lot of write as you grow, you get to know the writers, don't you? And you chat, and more and more were on Substack. And Medium has changed a lot, as you might know. You know, over the last year or so, it's not that enamored with the kind of create economy and writers who are writing. You know, it kind of suppresses that stuff quite a lot these days.
mm,
And so I started to get nervous about my future because all my subs come from Medium, don't they? And so it was Michael Lim. I was on a call with him, and he claims the victory for this, and he was like, "You need to come to Substack," you know. And so I felt like I knew what I was doing on Medium, you know, and that was ticking along nicely. So I was like, just to diversify, I think I might just go on to Substack
mm,
and just to kind of cover my bases really,
yeah.
and that's because where everybody else is. So that led me in the summer, I think it was probably just started writing on Substack.
Yeah. I think I was the same. I think I joined both platforms around the same sort of time. I didn't really use Substack for a while, just kind of there. And I was mostly focused on Medium at the start, and then I sort of shifted more to Substack. And for me personally, it sort of worked slightly better for me, and sort of enjoyed the platform. And I think I hit it at a good time because I was able to grow quite quickly in terms
Yeah,
of email subscribers on Substack. But yeah, no, they're both such great platforms. They're very complementary as well. And people are always like, Medium or Substack, like which one do I have to choose? But you can easily do them both. And as you say, you can repurpose content from a while ago and move them across platforms and that sort of thing. Um, in terms of your publication, sorry, Derek, tell us a little bit about that. So, what's the focus of it and the structure, and what do you offer for your paid subscribers? Because I think everyone who listens to these kind of podcasts is interested to see what other writers are doing and how they structure things and what their like long-term plans for it will be. So, what does it look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, so my publication is called The Irresistible Writer, and so if people see my homepage, they'll see my tags are set up. I've got three like sections really, and it's the three things I tend to teach people. One is how to write in a way that gets attention. One is to grow your audience, and the third is to make money. They
Mm,
tend to be the three things I write about, and so my homepage is like split up in those three types of writing, and I tend to rotate through them.
mm,
And so yeah, every Monday I'll send people a newsletter which will give some tips on one of those. I'll tend to focus on one of them particularly, and I still do what I did right quite in the early days. I just share some stuff that has worked for me,
mm,
that's helped me get attention or grow or make money. So I'll just kind of share those and write on notes a lot as well. And then for paid subs, I mean, I wondered for a while whether to offer paid subs, but I do. Yes, I've got a paid subscription which get a deep dive on a Friday. I send out a deeper analyzing, sharing something that's worked for me, so that's written.
mm,
And then once a month, I'll send a 10-minute video, training video, which is a clip of workshops that I deliver that I normally charge a
mm.
decent amount of money for. So I take a 10-minute clip, which is normally like teaching one point, and then I'll send that in video format to my subscribers, so they'll get that once a month as well.
Good.
And that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment, really.
Yeah,
And but it's still kind of early days for me, I think, in terms of Substack, and I'm just going to see what
yeah.
happens. I've got a very low number of paid subs at the moment on Substack,
Mm.
and because I've got lots of products as well and lots of services that I do, so I'm just kind of experimenting to see
Yeah.
uh, what works really. But
I think you just hit a thousand free subscribers there
yeah,
today, did
yeah,
you possibly or
yeah,
recently?
yeah, yeah. This week I hit 1,000. Yeah,
Congrats, I saw that.
yeah, yeah,
No, it's great, and like, yeah, I mean, you have really diversified the way you do things, which is really good. You've got Medium, you've got paid products, you've got a paid subscription option as well. You run the workshops, like there's a lot going on there once that all kind of feeds in to
yeah,
to each other, which is nice because I think we have a tendency, as you've already mentioned, to kind of go all in one platform and just be like, this is the platform I'm going to be on. I'm not going to go on anything else, and everything's going to be focused in this one channel. And then if that channel goes away or it changes or
yeah,
an algorithm changes, it can just totally mess you up. So having that diversification is great. I think that's a really
yeah.
good way for everyone to go.
If you're thinking, right, I'm going to diversify to this, or I'm going to add live workshops, I'm going to have products, or you're going to add something, then you need to nail that before you then go on to the next thing.
Yep.
You know, and so I think you're right. People, you can't stand still. You've always got to be moving forward, looking for the next opportunity, and just going for it, and not worrying too much. Give it a risk, but once you decide to go for something else, so when I was creating products earlier this year for 6 months, that's the thing I was doing, and that meant I need to learn how to send emails that were sales. I needed to learn landing pages and just all that sort of stuff, how to run Thrivecart. But that was my focus for 6 months. And once I felt right, okay, I know what I'm doing with that, then I started
Mm,
my live workshops, and that's probably the thing I'm focused on a little bit at the moment. And it's trying to get that. So I think it's a balance between you've got to add new things in and not stand still, but like don't do a little bit of everything
yeah.
and then actually you completely
Yeah.
fail because you don't read. Because to do it's okay to hear other people saying, "Oh, I've got 10,000 subs on Substack and I'm making 100 paid and this, that, and the other." But behind the scenes of that is a massive amount of work, and you can't just dabble at anything. You've got to think, right, how am I going to do this? And I mean, when I did my first paid product and realized actually, if you got a paid product and you send an email, you'll make no sales.
Mm,
I mean, you've got to have a sales sequence. There's a way of preparing, and there's a whole bundle around it which you've no idea. So I think people do need to just take risks. Don't get worried that you don't do stuff. But once you're going for something, then go all in, learn everything you can, study what the best to do, and perfect it. Once that is like ticking over, then go to the next thing.
yeah.
But you got to keep doing that. You're exactly right. Otherwise, you'll sink because the world will move on, won't it?
Yeah, no, you're just right, and thank you for bringing that up because I was kind of going to barrel on there, but yeah, it's a good point. Like understand one platform as much as you possibly can, and then start to move on to the next one, and that sort of way. And I wanted to ask you, Derek, just about the future for you. So where can you see everything moving? A, for yourself over the next sort of few years, and B, for the overall kind of creator economy. What can you kind of what little signals are you kind of starting to see now out there that are maybe suggesting which way things are going to go in the next sort of 5 or so years? Big question,
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, for me, so I don't do 5 year plans and stuff anymore. I did in my twenties, but I don't anymore. And I think because because I'm really quite new to the whole online thing, because it's only like less than 2 years ago I was started writing. A year ago I was making like about $25 or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm like, okay, I'll try that, see if that works. So okay, it is working, it's building. So I think that I would like to just find ways to help people more and have more of an impact rather than just make a few pennies here and there. Possibly, I mean, the ideal world is to earn more money with less time
Hmm.
so that I'm freed up to do other projects that I want to do in my life, really.
Hmm.
So yeah, so there's thoughts about running community. In January, I'm thinking of running something for new writers, maybe do a month's challenge with live calls and that sort of stuff to see if that really helps people and impacts them. And so yeah, I tend to have an idea and then I do it like the next week, to be honest. I move quite quickly with stuff and then just see what works
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
see where it goes, And like I'm getting like business owners coming to me a bit, maybe people who've got expertise and they're wondering how to do writing to
Hmm.
help with that. So a bit of coaching and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I reckon that like the the whole creator thing and the online thing has got a long way to go, hasn't it? Do you
Hmm.
know? I mean, it is really just getting started. I mean, most people I speak to don't know what Medium is. A few have heard of Substack more, you know what I mean? But they would not believe that you could make 2, 3 grand a month. They would just think it's a scam. I mean, they would just be like, "This is not real. What are you talking about?" Um, and the more that, and so if most people don't really know that you can do that, just
Hmm.
like ordinary people, not the super scammers, just ordinary people can do that, then that means most people don't know. So once people do know, there'll be more people doing it, and the whole thing could grow, more and more. And so yeah, there's no reason why it can't, because people are always going to have problems, aren't they? And they
Hmm.
want digital solutions and they want people to help. I think people love getting direct contact with people who can help them rather than going through organizations and that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. And that getting rid of the middle people, the middlemen, whatever, and just putting someone who knows stuff with somebody who needs to know stuff and putting those two together, we're only at the beginning of that and what
Yeah.
that kind of looks like.
Yeah.
And who knows where it's going to go. And AI is not going to kill it, is it? AI is just going to change it.
Yeah. I
So
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
really
think
interesting times.
there's a lot of things that Justin Welsh says about this kind of stuff about, people leaving like big corporate roles and going off on their own because they've taken the skills that they picked up in the
Yeah,
corporate jobs, and then as you say, they're just connecting directly with the person who needs help, and they're just using those skills. And obviously he champions solopreneurship and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I think you're right. I can definitely see more people moving in that direction over the next few years. And you're also right about if I mention Medium, people will be like, "What's that?" And some people will know what Substack is, and it's also at a very, very low level with people outside of the creator economy. And we think
yeah,
that it's like something everybody's talking about all the time, but we don't realize that 99% of people have never heard of it and don't have a clue how it works. So
yeah.
we're kind of ahead of the curve, I suppose, in that sense. And anyone who's on Substack right now and on Medium is probably also kind of ahead of the curve too, if they're
Because
taking it
it used to
seriously.
be, so in terms of the economy a few hundred years ago, it used to be actually all businesses were small businesses. Yeah. You
Hmm.
didn't have multinationals, you didn't have big companies, you didn't have corporate ladders or anything. Really, it was just individual people making stuff to help other people. That's how our world has worked for like a long, long time. And then we had this blip that led to companies and factories and like people working in like what felt like soulless jobs, and maybe that was the blip,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And if digital means that you can have individual creators and businesses or people of twos and threes creating things that helps people,
Mm.
particularly where it's knowledge and information, who knows where that could go? But maybe that would become more mainstream, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I hope it does because I love seeing people strike out on their own and learn how to do this stuff and find a lot of fulfillment in the work that they do and live better lives.
yeah,
Just in terms of like freedom and being able to be creative and do their own things and not feel like they can only take 2 weeks off a year because
yeah.
they're working in a big corporation, that sort of thing.
I mean, the thing that I love about it is that I can, because I've worked as an employee for most of my life, 3 decades or whatever. But the
hmm
thing I love about writing and creating, I can have an idea and then I can just go and do it.
Yep.
And there's no friction in between. So all my energy is into my idea of helping people. My energy isn't into meetings and talking to bosses and other people and whatever. I can just create something and that helps somebody.
Yep.
And that's really low stress. Do you know what I mean? It's hard work in your brain creating something, but there's no stress because the stress is in organization politics and people and all that sort of stuff. So like, and then just sending it out, and then you get direct feedback because you're helping all these people. You know what I mean? It's like a ridiculous number of people comment on my stuff every day, and I sometimes think like if all those people were in a room, it would be just like this massive hall every day you're speaking to, and that's just like the ability to influence and help that many people is
Mm.
just like mind blowing.
Incredible,
And
isn't it?
I think that like autonomy and free, and if I want to work a bit harder or a bit less, I can do that, you know,
Yep.
and that sort of freedom is very energizing, both to make an impact, it's very energizing to have the autonomy. And yeah, I mean, if I was starting out today, you know, the idea of working 4 hours a day for a full-time wage and working towards that so you could live and do all sorts of interesting things with your life, it's very appealing and it's very possible, isn't it? Do you know
hmm
what I mean? It's not a scam. It's really, really possible if you're helping people. It's not easy, but it is definitely very possible.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good way to kind of draw this to a close. It's not easy, but it is possible. I think a lot of people do think that it's really easy. They kind of get caught up in the guru advice. I
Yeah,
think they can jump from 0 to 100 overnight, but it does take that time. It does take effort. It does take work. But once it gets there, the freedom that it gives you is just incredible. I agree.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you as well, just as we finish, Derek. I ask everyone this, but if you had one golden nugget of advice for anyone who wants to write for a living, what would it be?
I would say improve one thing every month.
Mm.
Yeah, improve one thing every month. So like people are consuming hundreds of ideas everywhere, every day. Do you know what I mean? It's just stop scrolling, stop consuming stuff. Find one idea, don't consume anything else. Put that idea into practice relentlessly for a month till it
Mm.
becomes part of you. Then the next month, go and scour out, find one idea, put it into practice for a month. And then in like 6 months, you can engage in the comments then and stuff. And actually, you'll be a transformed writer. You'll be like ahead of everyone else because I think there's a lot of people just chatting in comments about stuff, and not many people are doing this stuff. So I think get one thing. It's not very exciting, but learn one thing a month, put it into practice till it's part of what you do. Do that for 6, 9 months, and you'll be ahead of 99% of people on you.
Great advice. Great advice. Yeah, great way to finish. And yeah, anyone who's listening today, who's a writer, who's an online creator, this is will have been a massive benefit to you. You'll know Derek anyway from Medium, but definitely go check him out there if you haven't come across him just yet somehow. And check him out on Substack as well if you're listening or you're watching this today. But Derek, thanks so much. It's great to chat to you. As I said, we've been sort of semi-connected for a while online, so it's nice to finally get to see you face to
Yeah.
face, so to speak. And just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate that. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, David.
No problem at all. Thanks, Derek.